Lake Superior, the graveyard of Great Lakes. There's a ton of shipwrecks that happen here, and I think this goes over so many people's heads. In fact, I don't think many people realize just how many shipwrecks continue to happen every month. It's a regular occurrence. We have definitely not mastered the sea just yet. There was a total of 26 large ships that were lost last year, which is down from 2022 though at 41. And it's happening all around the world too. It's crazy. We're obviously getting better, but this is still very much an issue for human beings. A ship graveyard.
And it's the largest freshwater lake in the world.
Yes.
It is surrounded by
I remember researching this. I remember seeing like the image in my head. It's like it explains why it's so bad here. I believe it has something to do with the water elevation and how shallow it is in certain parts. So spooky. A graveyard of ships.
It is surrounded by Minnesota,
we just have to keep them there.
The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the Canadian province of Ontario.
So we're all having to deal with this.
Really huge. It covers
both
over
sides.
80,000 square kilometers.
And it's so deep. I mean, it's the deepest Great Lakes of them all, as far west as you can go.
400 meters.
Just means you're pretty isolated out there.
European country, like the Czech Republic.
Wow.
Lake Superior holds about 12 quadrillion liters of water, which is so much that it could cover all of North and South America with a 30-centimeter layer.
Wow.
Almost 2
okay, 30 centimeters is not long, but
that's... 350 shipwrecks have been recorded on the lake. Over 200 of them in the area between Grand Marais and Whitefish Point.
Makes sense. That's probably where most of the traffic is really coming from or going into.
Great Lakes. The thing is that Lake Superior is especially dangerous in the fall, when the temperature difference between the water and air creates powerful winds of up to 110 kilometers per hour, and waves can reach 9 meters, turning the lake into a death trap for ships and sailors.
Well, never mind. I guess my theory is wrong. Still, this lake has certain parts that seem pretty shallow. I love learning about the Great Lakes. It's literally a freeway for vessels. I mean, it's no wonder early Americans loved expanding out here to what is known as like the Rust Belt now. You can go from Minnesota to Michigan to New York to all the way out, and obviously the Atlantic Ocean. But yeah, that stormy weather, and who knew it would have that big of waves? Okay, this is what I was thinking of. This is a diagram showing why the Great Lakes love to murder ships. Over 6,000 vessels have sank here, basically all having to do with very different factors, but there's a number of ways. Obviously, this is why we have not, well, mastered sea travel, I guess you could say. We kind of have. 26 ships is not bad considering how many ships we have out there constantly. The fact that it could cover North and South America is crazy. I knew a retired ship captain that did shipping on both the oceans and the Great Lakes. He always said he'd rather be in the Pacific Ocean than on Lake Superior. That video was, of course, by GeoGlobeTales. Why Washington is not a part of either U.S. state. I did know that. It's not a part of Virginia, and it's not a part of Maryland. It functions as its own district, which is why they want to have like electoral votes when it comes to voting.
Washington, the capital of the USA,
I'm assuming this has something to do. Well, there's a historical reason.
It might seem like the city is located in Maryland or Virginia, but Washington is actually in the District of Columbia.
There's probably some sort of, I'm guessing, something to do with history, but also administration, stuff like that.
Zone that doesn't belong to any state.
The District of Columbia.
In 1790, it was decided to build a new capital named after George Washington. The land for
1790. Crazy, because he was, still around and stuff. He was going to live for another 7 years, in fact. He was even president at this time. That's so crazy. I swear, every time I learn about this guy, he had such an opportunity to become basically a de facto king of America. We're all very lucky. We're so lucky he set up that presidential president of only doing 2 terms.
After George Washington.
But he was getting a city named after him.
Ceded by Maryland and Virginia, and the territory was made independent to ensure that no single state would have jurisdiction or undue influence.
I can see that.
Congress holds full authority over its laws, and it was named the District of Columbia.
Yeah, there could be some complications, obviously, if a state does have mandate over the capital city for the rest of the country. In fact, there's actually a lot of other places that do that, Australia being one, Nigeria, Brazil, and there's actually even more examples of that. So it seems like the U.S. set a very good precedent. Also, Virginia took their portion of D.C. back, so now it only sits in Maryland when it used to sit in both half and half. I thought D.C. stood for the capital. Here in Brazil, we have something very similar to D.C. Note our capital, Brasilia, inside of this administration zone, not Rio de Janeiro. Yeah, we Americans, myself included, really got to get with the times. They changed it to Brasilia, their capital, like 60 years ago. Why there are no bridges across the Amazon River? First of all, I didn't know that. That's insane. I'm assuming it's because it changes course too often. Like, look at this. Look how windy it is. This is destined for the river to change course and just connect here instead. A lot of rivers actually do that. I'm pretty confident that's going to be the reason here, but
look, the Amazon is one of the longest rivers in the world, stretching up to 7,100
not as long as the Nile, but
and crossing through almost
one
all of South America from west to east. But no one has ever built a bridge along its entire length. This means that Brazilians cannot cross the country from south to north entirely by land.
That's
they have to
very
rely
interesting.
on ferries or take long detours.
That's interesting. Brazil's literally cut in half. I mean, that's not that big of a deal. Most of Brazil's population obviously lie right here along the coast in the south.
The thing is that the Amazon flows through tropical rainforests, where it rains most of the year. This causes the river to overflow its banks regularly. The Amazon's width ranges from 1 to 10 kilometers, but during the rainy season, it can expand to 50 kilometers.
Dang.
Moreover, scientists recently discovered an underground river beneath the Amazon,
Oh,
the
that's so
Hamza
crazy.
River, which makes the soil unstable for building bridges.
Oh, that's
and
so
finally,
crazy.
the region is lightly populated, with no major highways.
Yes, population density of Brazil. People don't live in the north of Brazil or inside of Brazil. I mean, that's kind of the case. The more landlocked parts of many countries on Earth, they're not super populated. Like the first place that comes to mind for this example, China. Like no one lives in Tibet. Human beings, if it wasn't obvious, love to live next to water. So it sounds like this is literally
And
never
finally,
going to get
the
built.
region is lightly populated, with no major highways
Luckily,
or transportation
because of this,
hubs along the Amazon.
obviously with this map, like there probably isn't a huge reason to build a bridge in the first place. I mean, there definitely is, but it can't be that big of a deal that they don't. I'm
Locals
sure that
have
they would
long
like it
adapted
to.
to this reality by using water or air transportation. That's why building expensive bridges in this region just doesn't make sense.
It's still probably extremely annoying. I'm sure there's got to be one truck driver that's watching this video right now being like, "Fuck you, Drew, we need a bridge." Tired of taking the damn ferry. A river under a river is crazy. Me trying to sleep at 2 a.m. Did you know why there's no bridge across the Amazon? Yes, I am up. Now we need an entire video about the river underneath the river. Am I the only one that is completely overwhelmed by the thought of a 10-kilometer wide river and then it gets flooded to 50 kilometers? I'm Brazilian and I didn't know this. I'm from the South region. Thank you very much for this information. Yeah, I mean, 90% of the people probably live south of the Amazon. The invisible highway in the sky.
At the same time.
Air traffic control. You gotta make sure. This gotta be a very chaotic job, very stressful job.
They're moving chaotically, but in reality,
They-
planes have their own roads, just like cars.
Yeah.
The entire airspace is made up of invisible highways and is divided into zones, with each zone managed by a specific air traffic controller. This is an incredibly coordinated work involving hundreds of people.
Yes.
And here's how it works.
Well, elevation, I know, is certainly a big deal. Depending on your size of aircraft, commercial aircraft, that's going to help a lot.
Los
The layer
Angeles to
system.
New York flight as an example. A few days before departure, the airline develops the flight route, taking into account the shortest path, air traffic, weather conditions, and fuel economy.
Yeah.
The route is submitted to the air
The
traffic
weather, man, that's got to be messy because obviously that's changing all the time.
path, air traffic, weather conditions,
You
and
obviously
fuel
don't want to be
economy.
too high up the
route
air,
is
spending too much
submitted to the air
fuel.
traffic control system for approval, and then uploaded to the plane's navigation system.
You don't want to be in the air for too long. That's what's spending fuel.
Then, the tower controller gives clearance for takeoff, while the actual takeoff and climb to altitude are coordinated by the terminal controller. After that, control is transferred from one en route controller to another as the plane passes through different control zones.
Oh yeah, that's right. They
Each
do pass
controller
it.
can adjust the
They'll
route to
they'll
avoid
acknowledge when they're
turbulence or
passing it
reduce
too.
speed to maintain a safe distance from other aircraft. All of this makes flights so safe.
That's nice because they only have to be responsible for their own distinct region. Like if I'm in the ZKC zone, I don't really care what's going on outside of this zone. I'm just making sure everything stays cool where I am. I've always lived near a major airport and I've noticed this too. The coordination is so amazing. Flying is hard work. And every year we tend to get better at avoiding disasters, even though there are more and more planes and things flying in the sky than ever before. And that's just a part of why the most dangerous part of flying is the drive to the airport. Mind-boggling. The snowiest country in the world. I literally can't help myself. I really want to see if I can figure out the answer here. The snowiest country in the world. What place snows the most? Not only do we need to keep in mind latitude, like of course the countries that are near the poles would probably have more snow. You know, I'm thinking the classics, Canada, Greenland, which is a part of Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland. But then you also have to consider just pure elevation and sea level. So two countries that come to mind, Nepal and Bhutan, also possibly Switzerland. I guess it all depends on how you define snowiest. So like how many days per year is it snowing? Is that what this is talking about? On average, of course.
Did you know which country is the snowiest?
So he is
in
going to
the
talk
world?
about the North Pole
You might think
area
of northern
first.
regions, such as the Nordic countries.
So
or
it's
the
not going to be that. If we're starting the video off like that, it's probably not going to be one of these places. So my theory is correct, possibly, that it's more of a smaller, elevated place, like Bhutan, like Nepal, like Switzerland.
average annual
Is there one
snowfall
that I'm
ranges
missing,
between
though?
1 and 3 meters. Or maybe Greenland, with its average annual temperature of -5.
Greenland's part of Denmark,
or even
but yeah, we
Canada,
could say
with
that.
its vast northern territory.
Russia too. But how do you, because, you know, obviously Russia's so massive. Like, of course, there's probably always at one part of Russia where it's snowing constantly, right? All times of the year, maybe.
Territories. Surprisingly, the snowiest country in the world is Japan.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have guessed that one. And I actually just learned just today that in Japan, skiing is amazing. I don't think of Japan as a big ski country.
Niigata and Yamagata prefectures, snowfall ranges from 5 to 8 meters per season, and the city of Aomori is considered the snowiest in the world.
Wow.
Here, winters bring an average of 7 meters of snow. The national record was set on Mount Ibuki with 12 meters of snow cover.
Man, why? That's so crazy. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big skier, but I don't think of Japan when I think of best skiing countries. Yeah, honestly, I think of Switzerland, I think of Austria, I think of France, parts of the United States. Japan's not even in this list. Wait, how are Central Asian countries? Is it really a big ski resort? Yeah, look, I mean, Japan is literally not even on here. I think we've just unlocked a
record was set
crazy secret
with 12 meters of snow cover. Imagine a snow wall as tall as a 5-story building.
Jeez.
What's even more surprising is that these regions are on the same latitude as places where it almost never snows.
Yeah.
The reason for this phenomenon lies in Japan's unique geography.
The
Cold
elevation,
air from Siberia
very mountainous.
meets the warm waters of the Sea of Japan, and the mountainous terrain forces the moist air to rise and cool down quickly, resulting in massive snowfalls across the country.
Because obviously that water is hotter because of the latitude and then the air from Siberia. Dang. That's got to be the most interesting thing I've learned in a long time. Japan is just attacked by nature all the time. That and Godzilla. Japan is a very strong country. Imagine all the disasters in one country. Iceland, guess I'm Irish now. I only visit Japan in the wintertime. It's magical. Here's one I definitely know because I live in California. We did used to have a massive lake here in the middle. By the way, if you want your own California, you could throw into a lake. There's one over my shoulder. You can get that over at makeshift.com. You do whatever you want with these things. Set Texas on fire, doesn't matter. Yeah, so it's really flat still
used to look different,
inland, but also this is a very fertile part because of, well, the former geography of California.
Right in the middle. Over the centuries, it got smaller, and as a result of U.S. government mistakes, it completely disappeared.
Yeah, I heard about that.
This ancient lake, known as Lake Corcoran, was formed many centuries ago by rainfall and melting glaciers that filled the Central Valley. At some point, the waters of the lake reached a critical level and broke through to the Pacific Ocean, leaving in its place a dried-up valley.
Yeah, there's a lot of like map games, mods that I've played, where if it's like too far back in history, like California will still have a lake.
Lake Tulare, which remained the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi and the 6th largest in the entire United States.
And now it's just gone.
The valley turned out to be extremely fertile and quickly became one of the most productive agricultural regions in the United States.
Yep, that's what it's
all about. But due to the lack of rainfall, farmers, backed by government support, began using Lake Tulare to irrigate their fields.
Dang.
Despite warnings of the impact.
It's like Lake Chad all over again. It's our own version of Lake Chad. Even sadder, we don't talk about this.
The government continued to fund projects and build dams to redirect water from the lake and its feeder rivers for agriculture.
They probably thought
a dramatic drop in water levels.
Rain would continue. That's the other scenario I see where the lake returns. If like in a world where, I don't know, climate changes causes way more rainwater to come down or sea level rise. I like how 100 plus years of I don't give a frick can be chalked up to mistakes. Growing up in the Central Valley, I'd frequently find shells where I was playing in my backyard. My parents explained to me that it used to be a lake. I live in the Central Valley and a lot of people don't know that this lake reappeared this last winter due to heavy rain and massive snowpack. Whoa. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping it from just coming back, I guess. Ariel C, they destroyed me. Meanwhile, this lake, first time, this place gets literally no sun. Oh, is this, I think Norway owns this place, right? Man, this is terrifying. Talk about like some seasonal depression.
This
111 days of night.
And people living near the Earth's poles can spend several months without sunlight.
Yes, this is a very famous place in the geography community. This place always comes up just because of, well, how scary it would be. It's almost always dark.
As you know,
obviously where it sits
spins on its axis, making day and night take turns. The side facing the sun has
there's only a couple thousand people that live here if I remember correctly.
But the thing is, the Earth's axis is tilted at an angle of about 23.5
So that causes some seasons.
Now some areas don't get any sunlight at all. These are polar nights, and they happen in a region called the Arctic Circle. But because the Earth also orbits the sun, it means that during the opposite time of year, when the Earth is on the other side of the sun.
This is also why Australia is experiencing, well, summer right now as we're in winter.
These areas have several months without night. This is called the polar day. It's interesting that no country lies entirely above the Arctic Circle, but many cities with permanent populations are located in this area. The closer a city is to the pole,
Russia, Greenland,
the
Canada.
longer its polar nights and days.
That's why a whole lot of people don't live up here. Well, also just because it's hard and it's cold all the time. Flat Earthers are screaming into the sky after watching this. Yeah, there's actually only a little over 2,500 people that live on this northernmost island that Norway controls. I mean, just look at this map. This clearly expresses to me this would not be fun. I mean, maybe it would be fun to visit. I think. Although I bet you'd be very expensive. Probably a lot of people that want to do it, but also, I don't know, you have to take a boat across, or there's probably a plane. Oh, there is. Okay, yeah, you probably don't want to take a boat then. It is considered expensive to get here, but that, 150 for one way? Maybe that's because European flights can be like 30 bucks sometimes. All these videos are by GeoGlobeTales, definitely one of my favorite geography channels on all of YouTube. And a big old thanks to my patrons. I stole Durnil's Robux and won't return them until he plays Cartwright into Durnil. Alexander the Argentinian grandpa. I'm back, boys. aPhatNarwhal. Connor, I will literally revive the Megan. Fredrik doesn't realize Imperial pan flag is the same as modern Japan. NordTyrol, Tambre, the Mexican 760. And Boy.